Let's kick off. When We Are in Need, episode 8. So this is the penultimate episode. Just quickly, overall thoughts. Yes, no, positive, negative?
Oh, it's a big yes, mate.
Oh,
it's
good,
a big
good,
yes.
good. Lovely, okay. I would agree, yes. I mean, obviously I'm going to be positive about it. I didn't think it was the strongest episode, but I think overall, the way it ended up, I was very happy.
Can I ask you one question?
Go on.
When you watch this, I don't know, do you watch it on Now TV?
Yeah.
So, for the first time that I've played an episode of it, no breaks.
Oh.
Yeah, no ad breaks at all. It went from beginning to end. And I thought, is that a creative decision by the
But you mean actual ad breaks, or when it just fades to black?
Okay, on Now TV, do you get ad breaks?
No, I don't.
Oh, well, because I watch it on Sky, I always do.
Right, I see. Yeah, because I guess because I've got Now TV or whatever, it fades to black, so I know when the ad break is, but it just starts again straight away.
So you've been privileged up to this point?
I have. What I will tell you, though, is I don't know if this happened for you. For the first time, I think, I had a pre-episode rating warning. Before, which... I mean, I know they have to do it, but kind of a spoiler. It said themes of sexual violence, which then you're thinking, oh, okay, something's happening.
Francis, this is exactly what I said to Jenny at the end. I was like, it took a little something away from what was happening at the end, because at the back of my mind, I was like, well, where's this thing?
Yeah, you kind of know it's going to come. Anyway, let's jump into the breakdown then.
Let's do it.
So, in a survivors community in Silver Lake, leader and pastor David reads from the Book of Revelations to the group. He notices a younger member of the congregation crying, who asks when they can bury her father. After exchanging glances with his Lieutenant James, he claims the ground is too cold and they will wait until spring. Meanwhile, Ellie ventures out to find food. While hunting deer, she encounters David and James, who she makes a deal with for penicillin. David, a preacher, explains he was a teacher and found God after the outbreak. He reveals the man who was stabbed and subsequently killed by Joel in episode 6 was a member of his group. Ellie runs away after James gives her the penicillin under David's orders. Okay, as usual, a lot going on here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the opening. Completely new characters, and it's, again, they're asking you, okay, these are new people that you kind of need to get to know. But I think they did a good job, because right away, I don't know about you, but I got the impression this is like a creepy cult, right?
Yeah, 100%. But I didn't know how much of that was my own life bias coming into it, because whenever I see religious preaching, I'm like, you're bad. You're bad news. But also the community, they were all looking so miserable. I know that one of their own had just died, but they did not look like a community who were happy that they had found God.
Well, I think this is something that you can look back at the end of the episode and think, were they miserable, or are they just actually scared of David? And there's also this whole thing, and we'll talk about this more later, but the girl crying about her dad, and she says, when can we bury him? But maybe it's because everyone knows that they're not really eating venison. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So it's layered. I quite like that.
I mean, I guess we could talk about it now, because we are introduced to them up front, but towards the end of the episode, he says only a handful know. He says only 5 people know, I think he says. Do you get that impression, or do you get the impression that maybe officially 5 people know, but it's largely accepted in the group that they are eating people for survival?
Yeah. I think it's that James guy knows, and then that chef, maybe a couple of other people. I think it's one of those things. Everyone in the camp has a suspicion that they're not eating venison or deer, but they're too scared of David to say anything or speak up. I mean, we saw what happens later when he slaps that girl.
Yeah.
Before we get too much into the nasty side of David, though, he starts off very unassuming, almost nice, almost trustworthy. So,
absolutely.
I know you're kind of thinking when Ellie runs into him, oh, don't trust him, but he seems like he's nice. He's like, go on, get her the penicillin, let's go inside, I'll start a fire.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is to do with how well that actor performed that
character.
He's
great.
I think he completely won me over, because, like I said, I was suspicious of him from the off, right? What your bad news. But the minute he was alone with Ellie and was talking to her, this is what is so exceptionally creepy about him. How easy it was for us as viewers to be like, oh, maybe he's a nice guy. Maybe he's all right. At least for me, without knowing what was coming. It's like,
no, but still, I bought into it. Yeah, I could buy into it. You kind of feel like, oh, maybe he is a trustworthy guy. Maybe he's okay, you know?
Yeah.
Before we get to that, let's just mention when Ellie comes and finds David and James, Is that the name? David and James? And she puts on that voice. I don't know if you noticed this. She puts on like a
bit of a gruffer voice.
Yeah, like a badass voice, which I thought was really sweet.
It still just sounds like a little kid, whether it's a boy or girl, isn't it?
I know, but that's it, yeah. But one thing I did think was nice, when David says, "Oh, we can trade you for something," she goes, "Medicine, I need a medicine." And she kind of, for a moment, drops the voice, because it's a moment of like, oh, actually, yeah.
Yeah, I do. This could help me.
Yeah. But that was very sweet, I thought.
It is very sweet. I also thought it was pretty cool the way that she took it, the way that lead up to her encountering them was shot, with her tracking the deer at first, putting the bullet in the deer and all that. The fact that the deer stumbled upon them, which caused her to cross paths with them, I appreciated the way that worked. Just the whole way that was shot with that snowy landscape was quite beautiful, I thought, even though you've got the scene of incredible beauty getting demolished right away. Funnily enough, when about 10-15 years ago, when I was working on a script idea in a past life, I had a similar scene where you see the beauty of a deer and it's focused very much on the deer, and then a bullet just comes out of nowhere and obliterates it to show that harsh brutality, and it ended up being nicked by the Last of Us creators.
They obviously saw your scripts just floating in the ether.
Do you think I've got a case? Maybe I've got a case.
I suppose that goes a point further, because David, when he's talking about the fungus later, he sort of talks about that, how it's like a beautiful thing or whatever, it's not evil, blah blah blah,
and nothing happens by chance.
Yeah. Well, so let's talk about that bit. That's when it really flips, and I thought this could actually work almost as its own standalone short film, where, because the whole time you're not really sure what's going on or who's being genuine. Like Ellie says, "I've got a camp," and obviously we know that's not true. And then David's putting on this show. He seems very unassuming. He's quite nice, but then it flips finally when he says, "I sent out a few guys, and there was this crazy man who killed one of my guys, and get this, he was with a little girl," and then all of a sudden he's like, "James, put the gun down," and then you're like, oh fuck.
Great reveal. I love that.
So good, isn't it? I like that this is more a very different side, or antagonist, if you like, that we've seen so far. Before it's been clickers or very strong people, but this guy is just like a sick motherfucker.
The seducer with words, man.
Literally. Right, let's move on anyway. Ellie returns to Joel and injects him with the penicillin, but the following day she spots David and James with a group of men seeking vengeance against Joel. She flees on horseback to draw them away, but is captured after James shoots and kills her horse. David then places her... I know, poor horse.
I know. Animal brutality in this episode's unbearable.
David then places her in a cage at his camp. After Ellie notices an ear on the floor, David reveals he has been feeding his group the flesh of their deceased. He tells her he admires her strength and violence and that they could be together. Ellie reaches out but breaks his finger. Lots to uncover here, as usual. First thing I want to say, is that the right place to put penicillin?
Francis, thank you. So, check it out. Is that not the most painful place you could imagine, having to inject penicillin? Here's what you do, brother.
Do you know?
The research has been done. Okay. Post-episode, the research was done. In the event that you or someone you're with is in a situation where they require that penicillin shot, you stick it in the arse. But imagine... Take one cheek. This is
just one
genuine.
Cheek. Okay.
Take one cheek and now imagine a crosshair on it. Split it into four, like a grid of 4 squares.
You sounded like a cannibal at the moment.
This is true. Yeah, how to get a fleshy part.
Yeah.
Hit if it's the left cheek. Right. Aim for the top left. If it's the right cheek, aim for the top right. If you go interior left on the left cheek or interior right on the right cheek, you risk hitting a nerve by the spine and you paralyse the person.
Jesus.
If you go low, you risk paralysing the legs. So you need to go up and outer cheek, but very much in the arse, but up and outer, not in. How about that?
I never knew it. Well, you just panicked me, man. Like doing a shot of penicillin, you paralysed them.
Fucking paralysed, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I was thinking, is this actually going to work, for one? And then also, is she going to give him too much and overdose? Because she gives him another shot in the morning. I don't really know much about penicillin, but I was like, is this okay?
I know. Really know. I mean, whatever she did, it worked, because he went from lying down like a zombie to getting up and staggering around.
As you bring that up, this is actually a criticism in the game as well, because Joel is very much on death's door for days, and then it's like, I'm just going to get up and crack on, just kill a few guys.
Yeah, it was convenient, but I don't know, maybe the other thing that you're meant to give them a little bit of credit for is the scenario suddenly snaps him, like the adrenaline of the scenario. Survival makes him suddenly have this burst of energy.
I suppose after that, let's talk a bit more about David then. Well, they come back with that big deer, right? And they bring it into the main room, and I saw someone post about this on Twitter, because I always just check Twitter afterwards. And someone said they thought that was like a big show to the group, being like, look, we have been eating venison, like wink, wink, even though they probably weren't.
See, it never even occurred to me until she sees the ear that they were being cannibals. But I did think it was odd when they went into the kitchen, and I think one of the kitchen staff or whoever was chopping things up was like, what is that? And the guy went, venison. And I did think, why would you even feel the need to point that out? Because clearly that's all it can be. Obviously not.
Because they're obviously being very secretive. David is being very secretive about what actually they're eating. And like I say, I think that everyone sort of knows. But funnily enough, at the start of the episode, I think David's talking to James and he says, what are our supplies? And I think James says, we've got venison, elk and rabbit. He mentions 3 meats, which I think, in hindsight, when you finish the episode, he's referring to the 3 bodies that are hanging. It's code. And like later he's like, oh, I'm not speaking in code, which obviously means, there is some code going on. So I think really there was never any venison, elk, rabbit. They've just been eating human.
That's just simply horrendous, isn't it?
It is. It really is. It's so sick.
I mean, would you, if you were part of a commune like that, where you're hungry all the fucking time, you're terrified of what's out there, and it wasn't open that you're eating humans, but that was kind of your only means of sustenance, would you go along, or would you try and brave it on your own?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I'd like to think I wouldn't. That's like, I think Ellie says later, she's like, I wouldn't do that. I don't think I would. But I guess the point here is all of these people are probably decent people and obviously religious or whatever, but maybe they're not the strongest or fit for survival. Whereas David, who's a sick, sadistic motherfucker, he's like I said, after the outbreak, I found God. And I think it's one of those things where after society collapsed and he was able to just live freely and do what he wanted, someone who's drawn to power like himself, he was able to rise to the top. It just goes to show what that world has kind of become for people like that.
The thing that's interesting is how everyone that we've kind of encountered in this show so far had a life obviously they did, but had a pre-outbreak and post-outbreak. It's almost like war, when soldiers go to war. Like, in Saving Private Ryan, towards the end of that film, Tom Hanks starts reading a little bit about what his life is back home, that he's a teacher, etc., and some of the others do. It's kind of what's going on in this show. It's like they were different people beforehand, and what's happened has brought out completely different traits in them. It's freed some up, but it's constrained others. It's made others go darker. It's made others go lighter. They're literally explaining the title of the show, The Last of Us. We are seeing the last of the human race in each of these episodes, in all its horror, but in all its beauty as well. There hasn't been much beauty, but there's been a bit.
No. And one thing, did you notice earlier in the episode, I think when David's talking to Ellie, he mentions that he was a teacher before the outbreak.
Yeah.
Which is just when you kind of realise it's fucking...
even creepier.
It's horrific, man. It's horrific.
Mm-hmm.
Did you get any, by the way, inkling that he was this sort of predator before? And because you get that reveal where they touch hands and he's like, we could be together, and then it kind of obviously clicks.
Do you know, even then I was so naive. I thought what he was doing in that moment was just grooming her, but not sexually, grooming her to join the cult, grooming her to come in, believe in him, be like the others, like be subservient to him. I thought that's what that was. It was only, Jenny, my wife, said he's a paedophile.
Yeah.
It's like, no. But then when the fire broke out and he was on top of her and was like, I thought you realised I liked it when they fought back. I'm like, oh man,
I know,
Jesus.
horrible.
And then, yes, it made it horrible to think back about the fact that he was like, yeah, I was a teacher, kids your age.
Oh, it's terrible,
Jesus,
isn't it?
man.
I think you're right in grooming. He's like saying, oh, you're special, you're strong, blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, mate, when you see through it, it's really horrible.
That is all true, yeah, making someone feel like they're really special.
Yeah.
And it's that flip. When he spares her life earlier, when the other guys in the camper are going to shoot her, and he fires his gun in the air, you think, he's at least sparing her. He understands that justice needs to be served on Joel, but he's at least sparing her in his own twisted way to bring her back to the cult. But then it's like, no, there are things worse than death.
Yeah.
There are things worse than death.
Jesus, right. Well, with that, let's move on slightly to the rest of the episode. So, meanwhile, Joel awakens and manages to kill one of David's men before torturing 2 more to discover Ellie's whereabouts. Back at the camp, Ellie bites David as he and James grab her. Before they can kill her, though, she tells them she's infected. While they argue whether it's real, Ellie kills James with a meat cleaver and escapes. As David hunts for her, she sets fire to the steakhouse. She stabs him with a kitchen knife, but he overpowers and attempts to sexually assault her. Ellie grabs David's fallen meat cleaver and kills him in a frenzied attack. A traumatized Ellie wanders outside and panics when she runs into Joel, but Joel embraces and comforts her, and they walk away. What a crescendo of an ending.
Yeah, man.
I will say, this is the thing. I think it was impactful, but this is me again being like a stickler for the game.
Yeah.
I just had one tiny issue, and we'll jump right to the end. It's not really an issue. It's more of a preference. So Ellie, she does have a frenzied attack, right? It's horrific the way she just stabs and stabs. And this guy, I mean, I don't want to look at this guy's face. It was probably...
I know, that was not pretty. Yeah.
It was good, actually. I'm satisfied that she did that. She then kind of like walks away. And again, this is very small. As I'm saying this out loud, it's very small. But she walks away and goes out, and then Joel finds her. And I just thought some of the impact of their embrace was taken away because... And again, I'm that guy. In the game, Joel grabs her and stops her as she's stabbing him. She does it loads, but Joel comes and finds her. So she's very much in that zone where she's just traumatized by what's going on, and then he grabs her and embraces her, and she breaks down. And I just thought when she leaves and goes outside, oh god, it's snowing outside, crazy. Sorry. It's March, by the way, so it should be snowing. But yeah, I still think it was lovely, right? And I really am jumping ahead. When he says "baby girl" and all that, it's beautiful. I love it. I just, for some reason, I wish they just had him come inside. But I don't know. What did you think about it?
Why do you think they did that? I mean, I didn't have that as a frame of reference as it being different in the game. I would have liked to have seen that. I would have liked to have seen Joel having to intervene and stop it.
Was it impactful for you, though?
Her frenzied attack was impactful because it shows she's got not only survival instincts now, but she's is going to be a predator of her own. We can see how she is going to be able to fend for herself if need be in the future, because she's going to have to be tough in this world. So having a moment like that where she learns not to be so gullible, naive, sounds kind of harsh, but not to be taken in and to always be prepared was good. I liked that when Joel is holding her, at first she freaks out, but then like succumbs. She's still a child, has that moment where she kind of breaks down and is comforted by him. It worked for me, but having heard you say that, now I would have liked to have seen that instead. Yeah,
it's very small, but I just think it works better for me because it's, like I say, she's very much in that moment. So when Joel gets her, it's like she's at her rawest. And I know she still is as she walks out. She's not like, oh, I'm fine. But,
I mean, you're right. I'm glad we didn't have to see his face. But I love when films or TV shows hint at some brutalization but don't necessarily feel the need to show it, because more often than not when you then show the after effects, it's like one second of but then it's like you didn't need to see that.
I think you didn't need to see it. It's more about what it meant for Ellie. And one thing that's good, and it's the same in the game, although I suppose, let me ask you this, did you think Joel was going to come save her? Because we see that he's left the cabin and he's on her way to her. Like, did you think he was going to save the day?
Yeah, I did, and I'm glad that he didn't, because it, again, is kind of like a passing of the torch in a way.
Yeah, it's a nice subversion. Because I obviously know Ellie does it. I didn't think Joel was going to come save the day, but I guess that, like, looking back, they do definitely set it up as if like, oh, come on, Joel, quick, come save Ellie. But she doesn't need him in that way. She needs him there for like the support and emotional care afterwards, but.
I think it would have been hard to buy Joel coming in saving the day, and it would have done a disservice to everything we've learned about Ellie up to this point, because it would have been a case of he is her only hope, where she's starting to become her own hope a little bit. Although we did get a great scene, which I really appreciated, of Joel when he's torturing the two guys to get the information on the camp. I loved that.
Badass, man. That is so badass. Yeah.
And like for me, that kind of showed that this guy ain't innocent, because those guys were fuckers, but he doesn't actually know. He's not the one to decide if they should die or not.
Well, this is the thing. This is it's been coming up throughout the whole season. And I mentioned it all the time, but like Tess says, oh, we're not good people, Ellie. She says at the beginning. Yeah. And then Ellie says, how do you know they were going to ambush us? And Joel says, I've been on both sides. Tommy says to Joel, those years we survived, I have nightmares about those years. About the things we did. Joel has done some bad stuff, but you see it here because, Jesus Christ, he does not give a single fuck. He stabs that guy straight in the kneecap. For one, jeez, I know, I like grimace, man.
And he's like, I'm going to pop it off if you don't tell me what I need to know. It's like, oh, man. Imagine your kneecap
I
popping
know.
off.
Well, this is the thing, and I suppose what we're seeing here is like how far he'll go, and I suppose maybe this is what he was doing when he was with Tommy to, you know, save someone he loves. But
Yeah.
when he realizes Ellie's in danger, he's on
Christ.
it, man.
Yeah.
And then the other guy, he says because he does the whole thing where he's like, I'm gonna get him to put it on the map, and then if he doesn't match it up, you're in trouble. And then he goes
Yeah.
to the guy and he says, I'm not telling you shit. And he goes, don't worry, I believe him. He
believe
just
him.
batters him with a pole.
Amazing.
Fucking
That
hell,
is
man.
amazing.
Yeah, badass, man.
One thing that I would say, from having got this far into the series now, with only one episode to go, it makes me want to go and play the game.
Yeah.
It makes me want to live this. Everything that I've seen, I want to go and live through it now.
Yeah. Well, one thing I said, like, even if you don't want to play it, great things about Naughty Dog games. I mean, you've played Uncharted, right?
Yeah.
They're very much, you can watch them because they're kind of like movies in a way.
They're cinematic in a way.
They're very
aren't they?
cinematic. So even if like just Jenny replayed it and you watched her play it, I'm
That's
sure
true.
you'd get the same joy.
Well, I got a feeling that I don't want to steal your thunder.
Go on.
Go on. I think you've got something that you want to say because you just said Uncharted as well. So I think you've got a connection there. I've got a feeling you want to make it.
No, well, we're going to talk about Joel, Troy
There you
Baker.
go.
Yeah, do you know?
Yeah.
I kept reading out James and thinking I should mention that. Yeah, Troy Baker, obviously, who plays Joel in the game, plays James here. It's quite a nice little role for him. It's not too
Yeah.
big, but
No, it's
again,
nice, isn't
it speaks to them of a few of the characters or actors in the game got roles for the show. And yeah, I think it was quite nice. He did a good job.
I think so.
I bought into the whole he follows his leader, but there is some slight doubt there because I think even David mentions, do I sense doubt? And he goes, oh, no, but you kind of think maybe.
Yeah.
And then also there was that point where he says, maybe it's God's will. And this was another moment for David as well. David doesn't say anything. He just turns around and looks at him. And that just
Yeah.
goes to show like how scared these people are of him. And you're thinking,
Yeah.
why are they so scared of him? He's just a little bloke, but he's obviously just a fucking sick bastard.
You know, the
which we
thing
found
that's
out.
interesting is I have a unhealthy interest in Charles Manson and the Manson family and everything that went on back then. And it's the same kind of thing where Charles Manson was this really small, unassuming guy, but super charismatic. And even though he didn't necessarily do a lot, he was in control of people who did some terrible shit, and everyone was terrified of him. Everyone did what he said purely because of the psychological games that he would play with them. And there is certainly something about him in this guy.
That's exactly it. I mean, he doesn't say anything. He just turns around and looks at him, which is more powerful than being like, no, it's not God's will, blah, blah, blah. He just stares and then moves on. I mentioned it briefly, but at the end when Joel embraces Ellie, he calls her baby girl. I don't know if you noticed this.
Paul, my film buster colleague, messaged me last
me as
night
well.
to point it out. There you go.
I think he really liked that scene because he just said baby girl. Yeah, but yeah, so nice moment.
It went over my head when it happened, so I didn't get the significance. It was only afterwards. I was like, oh, okay, nice moment.
So obviously he says baby girl is what he says when Sarah's dying in his arms in episode 1. He says, come on baby girl, it's okay, get up. And then here he's hugging and embracing Ellie again, and he says, baby girl, it's okay baby girl, I've got you.
So does that also happen in the game then, when he stops her from smashing his head in?
Okay. Yeah. So that's a very big moment in the game, and the watch that Sarah gives him in the first episode, which is broken, which he still wears, is very much in the shot as he's hugging her. So it's kind of a very big connection.
Now, see, they should have done that in the show. Why set the watch up in episode 1 if you're not going to show it in that scene like that?
Well, they did. It's in the scene. That's what I mean. It's in the
okay.
show. But I think it's very subtle, so you're not really looking out for it. It's just what he's wearing.
Sometimes I don't pick up on his subtleties. You need to hit me over the head with it,
Well,
make it
it's
obvious.
all right. I got you. That's why I'm here.
Thank you.
But like my thought here is, and I suppose it's good. With one episode left, we've reached critical mass. Joel and Ellie's relationship is, it's carved into stone at this point. They care for each other. They love each other. They need each other. And that beginning that they had all the way back in episode 1, where Joel is very standoffish to Ellie and he's hiding and he's protecting himself. He doesn't want to let her in. But that's completely been carved away, and she is in there, and they've got each other, and it's
I'm filled with so much anticipation for this final episode. I'm horrified at the same time about what might potentially happen. Whichever way you cut this, I don't see the story have a happy ending. Here is one question though, and maybe this is a conversation that's best held until the end of the final episode. But at this point, the thing that I'm wondering now and this could be the same for the game, if Ellie holds the cure inside her, and the cure is administered to the human race as they exist now in whatever way possible, fine. That means that the humans that are around now can't be turned, but that isn't that. What protection does that offer against this entire race of infected who are coming in, ripping people apart?
That's true.
They still, even if they're all got a treatment, they still need to wage war against an entire another race, right? It doesn't eliminate the thing.
No. Well, I suppose, I suppose we'll find out what happens, but I guess, it's not really an easy fix. A cure doesn't mean everything is just solved. The world is still
something I don't know.
Well, I I think I do. The funny thing is, Bella Ramsey, who obviously plays Ellie, she mentioned that fans will be divided by the ending, which I think would be the case anyway. But I'm now wondering, does that mean they're going to stray from the game slightly and give us something unexpected? So now I'm even thinking, oh gosh, what's happening? I don't really know.
All right, and now at this point in the game how much story there is left, right?
Yeah, so I'm slight, because again, the last episode is only, I think, 42 minutes.
Yeah,
I think I sent you a message. Yeah, so, which seems very short. I would have thought they would have done like an hour and a half, finale special. Because it's so short, I'm now wondering, are they going to be able to fit everything in? But I guess when you get rid of gameplay and you're just getting to the core beats of everything, it's you can get through what happens.
I've got a little theory about this final episode.
We'll test it next week.
We will test it next week. We'll know immediately as soon as the episode starts. It will go hand in hand with what Bella Ramsey said then. I think this final episode, Joel and Ellie aren't going to be in it at all. Yeah.
Wow.
I think we're going to see another side, and there will be some sort of cliffhanger which makes us think, so that we're all set for season 2. Because if you think about it, that ending we just saw for Joel and Ellie kind of works.
Their arc is complete. Yeah, that's very true. Although I think they can't do that. Surely that is a bold.
We didn't think they would do that storyline in episode 3 that they did. My God,
that is a bold move. One thing that's interesting to say actually, this episode 8 that's just gone was the highest viewership they'd had for any episode so far, which is very impressive because usually it slowly fades off, from episode 1, but it's actually been growing, which I don't think is super common. Like for an episode 8.
That's true. One thing that I thought was interesting was checking the IMDb scores for the episodes so far. And I'm sorry to say it, Francis, a lot of people seem to agree with me that the last episode was the worst, right?
Oh, the one before?
Episode 7.
Well, hold your horses, mate. It's been review bombed a little bit, like episode 3 was, because of the gay storyline and a lot of losers are just upset. Yeah, I know. But
don't lump me in with those people.
No. Yeah, but no. You're fine. But yeah, I think we've pretty much covered everything there. I'm very excited for the last episode. It's a short one again, like I say, which I don't know what to think. I'm scared.
What's best case scenario for you? Without going into detail, do you want a faithful adaptation, or do you want something new?
I do. Well, because the funny thing is, I always kick up a fuss when they're too close to the dialogue in the game. Although I think that happened a lot in this episode. Actually, a lot of similar lines, but I didn't really notice. So maybe I've got over it. I want them to stick to it, mainly because I think it's such a good ending, and
right.
I want to see what you think, and just what the world thinks. And my parents have started watching it now, and I'm really interested to see what they think. So I would like them to stay, although I wouldn't be mad if they change it, as long as it's good and has like similar impact.
Remains to be seen, eh? I'm open for anything at all. I can't wait. I cannot wait.
No, mate, I can't either. But we should probably end it there. We've been going for a bit.
Yeah.
One more episode to go. We'll see you guys next week, and fingers crossed it sticks the landing.
What a ride.
Catch you next week.
See ya. Bye-bye.